Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 27th of July and we are going to deal with the economic survey which has been released by the government. This is a document which the government releases on the eve of the stabling of annual budget. This document is prepared by the Department of Economic Affairs, the economics division in that, and the chief economic advisor is the responsible person for preparing and rolling it out. This document is containing a lot of information about various sectors in our economy, whether it be investments or banking, international trade and commerce, or environment conservation, the social sector. In a nutshell, it gives a complete picture about the socio-economic well-being of the country. We have been releasing it right from the very beginning, although the trends and all have changed over here. So, let us start with this economic survey. The basics of this is a comprehensive review or annual report of Indian economy during the closed financial year. It is prepared by Economics Division of the Departments of Economic Affairs, and India's Chief Economic Advisor guides it for getting it prepared, means it is the responsibility of India's Chief Economic Advisor to get it developed. It is typically published a day before the Union Budget, that is why I said on the eve of the Union Budget. The survey has evolved over 3 years, becoming more comprehensive and analytical in nature, and that is why it has become more important for the civil service aspirants as well. Now, in this particular video, I will be talking about facts which are there outlined in the economic survey. The analysis and all I will be taking up in the future videos to come. Wherever I feel fit, I'll definitely include those analysis. Now, the history of this economic survey. The first economic survey was published in 1950-51 as a white paper within the budget papers. Initially, the survey relied on secondary data due to scarcity of readily available figures and analysts, but now we have ample figures, analysts also, and data sets as well. So it has become better and better over the years. Over time, the survey has expanded its scope also and became a primary data source for those outside the government, like us aspirants and us teachers as well. However, since 2021-22, economic survey has reverted to its classic template, focusing on hard facts and less on opinions. It has become less opinionated and it is basically more focusing upon the facts which are there. That is why this segment also we are focusing more on facts. Now, the first topic over here, there are multiple chapters in economic survey. The first we are going to talk about is overall economic growth of the country. We know that India is the fastest growing economy in the world. What is the rate of growth? What has been the trend in the rate of growth over the last 3-4 years? What are the factors which are majorly driving growth? So, all these we will see over here. Now, GDP growth, India's real GDP grew by 8.2%. Real GDP is that GDP which is accounting the impact of inflation in it. So, that is what the growth was, 8.2, and it will definitely be more, this 8.2, and the net GDP growth rate which does not account inflation is less in FY24, exceeding 8% in the 3 out of the 4 quarters. So, here 2020-21 minus 5.8%, 2021-22 9.7%. Why? Because the base level went down. This was the COVID year, so it was dropped to this level. Then 2022-23 it came down to 7%, and 2022-23-24 it again rose to 8.2%. And no large economy in the world is growing at this pace. Projected growth, India's real GDP is anticipated to grow between 6.5 and 7% in the fiscal year 2024-25, means the growth can come down. The global context, India's growth is notable given the challenging global economic environment with 3.2% global growth in 2023. The growth for the entire world, if we combine, was 3.2%, and India's growth alone, if we see, is 8%. So Obviously, we are well above the global average growth rate, but this needs to improve as well if we want to survive as a country in this world, because we are interconnected with each other a lot. Recovery, the real GDP in FY24 was 20% higher than its level in FY20, a feat achieved by very few major economies post-pandemic. So, we have bounced back after the pandemic, and the major reason highlighted for the growth is domestic demand in India. Domestic demand due to huge population, and the spending capacity of that population is also increasing day by day, year by year. India's capital expenditure in FY24. Capital expenditure is that expenditure which is done by the intentions or done with the intentions of making more money out of it. For the government, infrastructure like roads, highways, or airports, railway stations, railway lines, all this will be in capital expenditure or counted in capital expenditure. This has been increasing. India's capital expenditure in FY24 reached 9.5 lakh crore, a 28.2% year-over-year increase and nearly triple the level of FY20. FY20, so capital expenditure as percentage of GDP, if we see, 2019-20 it was 1.7, 2020-21 it was 2.1, 2021-22 it was 2.5, and 2022-23 it was 2.7, and 2023-24 it was 3.2. So, this capital expenditure government started focusing upon or increased its outlay in this COVID year. Why? Everything was in lockdown. Government decided कि भाई we will do this capital expenditure. We will generate jobs by doing this. And this capital expenditure by the government back then did not benefit the government then. It has started to benefit the government now, because those capital expenditure projects take time to get completed, and then once they are completed, they will start delivering the results. This is what the plan of the government was, and now the government has, government saw this working, so expenditure has kept on increasing. So by 2027-28 from now, there will be more rewards of this capital expenditure. Condition applied, politics should remain stable. Condition applied, the atmosphere should remain investment friendly. Condition applied, the Indian economic growth should be sustained like it is. So there are certain conditions which are applied. Government is doing that capital expenditure, and that capital expenditure has increased over the years. Now the time is there to reap the results. Then India's external debt, debt which we have taken from foreign countries, indicators remain stable with external debt at 18.7% of GDP as of March 2024. So in 2017-18 it was 20.1%, it dropped down to 19.9% in 2018-19, 19-20, 20.9% it rose. 2021, 21.1%, because we had to take a lot of loan, especially from countries like Japan over here in COVID years to fund various projects. Then it started reducing, 19.9, 19, and now it has come to 18.7. It, as a proportion of GDP, it is lower than 2017-18. In absolute terms, it may be higher because GDP is also increased over here. So it is like this. Additionally, foreign exchange reserves cover 97.4% of the total debt. So whatever total amount of debt we have taken from outside world, 97% of our forex reserves will be able to tackle those debts. So there is no such tension, and even those countries from where we have taken loan, they are also tension free कि भाई India से loan वापस मिल जाएगा. Second is inflation and monetary policy. So inflation is nothing but price rise, happens due to the supply demand mismatch. RBI is the nodal agency in India which is responsible for maintaining inflation in a bracket of 4 plus minus 2%, that is 2 to 6%. So what has been the inflation rate and all? Let's see. Retail inflation means the inflation which is there available at the retail level, means end consumer level. There what is the inflation rate? Moderated to 5.36% in FY24, and as I said, the limit set by RBI is 4 plus minus 2%, that is 2 to 6%. This is the limit. So this is well within the limits, 5.36%, the lowest since the pandemic it is. The highest was in 2022, it was above 7%. Core inflation. Core is that inflation or inflation in those products except for food and fuel. Food and fuel are considered to be very volatile when it comes to prices, and core is considered to be stable. So, if we remove food and fuel, the remaining items, inflation on them is considered to be core inflation. The core inflation dropped to a 4-year low in FY24. RBI actions, the Reserve Bank of India raised repo rate by 250 basis points from May 2022 to combat inflationary pressures, and now since a long time repo rates have been stable. We've studied that in the previous videos. Future outlook, RBI projects inflation to fall to 4.5% in FY25 and 4.1% in FY26. So we are moving towards this idealistic goal, that is 4%. So if I see 2012-13 inflation 10.05%, double digit. 2013-14 9.38%, reduced. 2014-15 5.83%. 2015-16 4.91%. 16-17 4.52, 17-18 dropped to 3.59, 18-19 dropped to 3.41. Then from there it started rising. 19-20 4.77, 20-21 which was a pandemic year 6.16, 21-22 again a pandemic year 5.51. 2022-23 Russia-Ukraine war started. The inflation was the maximum 6.65% overall for the entire year. And 2023-24 it has again come down to 5.36%. So it is like this, and we will be moving towards more dropping it, making it towards 4%. Next is external sector. External sector means from foreign countries what has been our trade. So current account deficit is basically that account where foreign trade happens, import exports, and the payment of interest rates on the investments done in India and by Indians in abroad, that is all accounted in current account. So current account deficit narrowed to 0.7% of GDP in FY24, down from 2% in FY23. So this is a substantial, I would say, achievement. Either our exports are increasing, imports are reducing, or our interest outgo is reducing and interest ingo is increasing. Services exports grew by 4.9%, $341.1 billion in FY24, driven by IT, software and business services. So IT exports are maximum in the service export sector. Remittances, those I would say diaspora of India which is living abroad, obviously they send back money to their family, friends over here in India. Those are called as remittances. India remains the top global remittance receiver, receiving $120 billion in 2023. So $120 billion last year, India top, Mexico second pay, $66 billion, China third, 50, Philippines, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Nigeria, Guatemala, ठीक है. India is way above. And last year India received, means this is FY24 data, I think, we received this much amount in 2023. In 2022, we received 112.5. That time also we were the highest. So our remittances have increased from 112.5 to $120 billion. Good news. Forex reserves sufficient to cover more than 10 months of projected imports for FY25. Means if we stop exporting and we only keep on importing, we will be able to keep on importing for 10 months of FY25, that is 2024-25. Let us see the trend in forex reserves. 2020-21, $557 billion. 2021-22, $607 billion. This is COVID year. 2022-23, it dropped down to $578.4 billion because international inflation went too high. Fertilizers, petroleum and all, they became expensive. And now again it has risen to $646.4 billion. The highest till now in history is this. Now investments and capital formation. Public investment has been pivotal in sustaining capital formation in recent years. Private sector investment has also gone up, showing encouraging signs since FY22. So more and more private investment is coming in. Gross fixed capital formation increased by 9% in real terms in 2023-24. Capital markets, primary capital markets means IPOs and all, facilitated capital formation of rupees 10.9 lakh crore in FY24. So those have also been performing well. How has the banking and financial sector been performing? Let us look at it as well. Credit growth means how much credit was or loans were disbursed by the banks to the people or to the businesses. Bank credit growth was broad based and in double digits. So credit growth is happening means business activity is increasing. Non-performing assets, NPAs, gross and net NPAs reached multi-year lows. That is also good. NPAs means those loans which are labeled as bad loans, that has gone down. Stock market performance, India's market capitalization to GDP ratio is the 5th largest globally. So we need to increase that, but yes, that is also an achievement for us. Employment and labor market, lot has been talked about this. The unemployment rate decreased to 3.2% in 2023, 22-23, and that is according to the periodic labor force survey, PLFS. Formal employment, net payroll additions under EPFO have more than doubled over the past 5 years. So EPFO mein additions were there. This we saw in the RBI report also very recently. Youth and female participation, significant rise in workforce participation, offering opportunities for demographic and gender dividends. So more female labor force participation rate we saw. Labor force participation rate is an indicator under PLFS. So more females are participating in the economic activities. That is reflected in the economic survey as well. 7th, agriculture and food management. This particular sector, if we see the sector growth, average annual growth rate of 4.18% at constant prices over the last 5 years, this sector has seen. Allied sectors like livestock, fisheries and all, they showed robust growth. Cumulative average growth rate of 7.38% of livestock, 8.9% of fisheries from 2014-15 to 2022-23. So this has been witnessed and this is tic-tac amount of growth. Digital initiatives, implementation of digital agricultural mission 2021 to 2025 and eNAM, that is National Agriculture Market, where the farmers can sell their products. Any farmer located anywhere in India can sell its product to the buyers located anywhere in India through this digital platform, that is eNAM. Digital initiatives for agriculture, digitalization of land records and all are also happening. Disbursement of accurate information to the farmers about weather predictions and all, this is also being undertaken by the government. Then with respect to food security, free food grains provided to 81.34 crore people under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Now under this there are two categories. Priority households, they get 5 kilo per person per month wheat, rice and coarse grains. Any of these three you can take, total will be 5 kgs per person per month. The second category is Antyodaya Anna Yojana households. They will be getting 35 kgs of ration, wheat, rice or coarse grains, in what proportion they want. They can take it free of cost. Free of cost for priority households, free of cost for Antyodaya Anna Yojana households, and this free of cost has to continue till 2027-28. 2030, we have a goal to achieve, that is a sustainable development goal of zero hunger and poverty. So this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana is going to be instrumental in that. Industrial growth, now manufacturing growth, average annual growth rate 5.2% in the last decade. Talking about steel production, India became a net exporter of finished steel over the past decade. Earlier we were a net importer. Electronics manufacturing, significant growth since 2014, reaching 3.7% of global market share in FY22. I believe we are struggling here. This should increase more and we should be focusing upon more and more manufacturing of electronic products. MSME support, rupees 9,000 crore allocated to the Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for micro and small enterprises in Union Budget 2023-24. So let us see how much they translate into this. Then 9th is the service sector. Service sector, is the major contributor in our GDP and major contributor in our exports as well. So that the growth in there we will see. Sector growth estimated to have grown by 7.6% in FY24. The service sector gross value addition year on year growth, so it is 7.6% in 2023-24. But see, minus 8.4% it went down in 2020-21 and from there it rose to 9.2%. Just in line with our GDP, this graph is moving. because this is the major contributor in GDP. PMI performance, PMI stands for Purchasing Managers Index, and this is an index which highlights the inputs taken by the industries, the raw materials purchased by the industry, the employment generated by the industries. Assuming that if the industries are procuring more, means the industries are producing more. That is why they are procuring. So this Purchasing Managers Index performance, service PMI above 50 since August 2021. So above 50, if the value is there, then means you are expanding, indicating continuous expansion for 35 months. Global services exports, India's share reaches 4.4% of the world's commercial service exports in 2022. This definitely can increase. If this increases, means our service exports will increase. E-commerce growth, Indian e-commerce industry expected to cross USD 350 billion by 2030. Currently, it is somewhere around 150 ke aspas hai, if I am not wrong. Then infrastructure development. The government has focused too much on capital expenditure. So infrastructure is kind of a capital expenditure of the government. So national highways, we have the highwayman of India, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, at the helm of affairs. So construction increased from 11.7 kilometers per day in FY14 to 34 kilometers per day by FY24. And NHAI also holds the world record in the maximum amount of road constructed in a day for that. Railways capital expenditure increased by 77% in the past 5 years. Airports, new terminal buildings operationalized at 21 airports in FY24, increasing passenger handling capacity by approximately 62 million per annum. Clean energy, new investment of rupees 8.5 lakh crore, that is USD 102.4 billion between 2014 and 2023 has been put into clean energy. That is also very much essential. Climate change and sustainable development, for that what has been undertaken? Emission reduction, emission intensity of GDP reduced by 33% from 2005 levels. So emission intensity is the amount of emissions done to generate 1 unit of GDP. Now the amount of emissions generated, done to generate 1 unit of GDP in 2005, from there we have reduced the emissions done by 33%. Our goal is 45% reduction. So that is what it is. Like for example, earlier there was a factory producing, let's suppose, this pen. The factory was using electricity. That electricity was produced by burning coal. Emissions were there. These pens were transported from the factory to the wholesalers or to the dealers via trucks. Emissions were emitted. The GDP was generated over there, but emissions were there for generating that GDP. Now we can reduce the emissions for generating the same amount of GDP, which simply means that we are reducing the emission intensity. Now that factory has installed its solar panels, it is producing its own electricity, which is a cleaner source, emissions reduced. It has procured EVs to transfer these pens from one place to the other, zero emissions. GDP is being generated, pens are being sold, profit is being earned, but emissions have been reduced. That is how emission intensity can be reduced. Emissions per unit of GDP, that is what the definition is, no? So reduce emissions, GDP make it the same or increase it. Main thing is emission reduction should be there for doing any economic activity. Economic activity you keep on doing, they are not stopping you. So it is this concept that has been reduced, and we will be making it further by 45%. That is our climate goal. By 2030 we have to achieve that. Then renewable energy, non-fossil sources make up 45.4% of installed electric generation capacity as of May 31, 2024. So non-fossil, say we have to have at least 500 gigawatt by 2030. So 500 gigawatt out of 800 gigawatt will be the expected demand, and that has to be there. That is more than 50%. So abhi 45.4% is there. We can definitely be there. Mission Life, that is lifestyle for environment, which was proposed by the Indian Prime Minister only. It is basically an organic lifestyle such that environment is being conserved. You're going out of the house, switch off all lights, fans. You have to travel to some place. If you can travel by public transport, use public transport. Don't take your own vehicle. So this is what sustainable lifestyle is. Initiatives to create a mass movement for sustainable living based on conservation and moderation. So that is something which is there focused upon in Mission Life. We are pursuing it. International leadership. India has led several global climate change mitigation efforts, including International Solar Alliance, which is headquartered in India, and Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, which is a knowledge hub, which is also headquartered in India. This knowledge hub is having all the best practices in the world, which is making infrastructure disaster resilient. So that is what CDRI is. Then 12th, the social sector developments. Education, implementation of NEP 2020 is happening, focusing on foundational literacy and numeracy. Healthcare, over 34.7 crore Ayushman Bharat cards have been issued, covering 7.37 crore hospital admissions. But the CAG report found that there were certain shortcomings in the issue of the Ayushman cards. So these kind of shortcomings have to be taken care of. Women empowerment, Deen Dayal Upadhyay, DAY, National Rural Livelihood Mission. Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission program covers over 89 million women through 8.3 million self-help groups, and these self-help groups are being empowered more and more for doing business activities, in turn empowering the women. And for skill development, increased participation in government skill development programs under Skill India initiatives have been witnessed, and this has to increase more and more and more. Certain challenges and future focus areas. One such challenge is global risk, which we can do less about, like Russia-Ukraine war happened, which led to increase in prices of fertilizers, fuels and food. We could not do anything about it. So that was a challenge, and that will remain. So solving global GDP growth and rising trade protectionism poses significant risks to us. Climate adaptation, aligning production patterns with agroclimatic characteristics and natural resources. You have to adopt to climate change. Climate change is happening, it will happen. So you have to adopt yourself for that. So this is what climate adaptation means. Technology integration, balancing technological deployment, example AI, with labor considerations in various sectors. AI can lead to reduction in jobs, and you cannot ignore AI also. So you have to implement AI with having labor considerations. That is a challenge, and it should be done by taking into account labor considerations. Infrastructure financing, need for higher levels of private sector financing and resource mobilization. This should be done. Data management, developing better systems for tracking infrastructure utilization and financial flows. So this is what was there in a nutshell in our economic survey this year. Analysis, deeper analysis, I will be picking up wherever I will be finding it suitable to. But yes, for us aspirants, this amount of gist is very much needed. No MCQs today, no discussions of MCQs of yesterday. I'll be doing it on Monday. So with this, I come to an end of today's session. I will be seeing you on Monday now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Not repeating it today. Namaste, Jai Hind, take care.